ഇവിടെ നിന്നല്ല അവനെ മായക്കുട്ടി നീ വാ.
എന്താ
നീ എന്തിനാ പഠിക്കണേ?
ഫൈനൽ ചെയ്ത് LLB-ക്ക്.
അതല്ല ചോദിച്ചത്, നീ എന്തിനാ പഠിക്കണേന്ന്.
This is the ultimate existential question every student asks to themselves. Is there a point to all this? What is the purpose of me studying? Hello dear students, this is Vishwas and we will be looking at existentialism and the greatest story associated with it. Life presents us with such existential angst quite regularly. The school of existentialism deals with the questions of man's existence. Two important people who discussed this concept of existentialism in the mid-20th century were the French authors Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. Existentialism is a philosophical theory that people are free agents who have control over their choices and actions. Existentialists believe that society should not restrict an individual's life or actions and that these restrictions inhibit free will and the development of that person's potential. Now let us look at some common existential actions. What are they? What does a person who believes in existentialism do? We might not have thought of these with the term existentialism, but at some point of time, these thoughts must have come into our mind. Look at one action. When we say we are going to take responsibility for our own actions, this is an existentialist line of thought. When we own up to our actions, suppose we did something and we have to take the responsibility of it, and you do it knowing fully well that this is something which you should be held accountable to, you are believing in this process. Living your life without regard to commonly held social or religious beliefs. Sometimes we are forced to do certain things because the society tells us to. If you object to that, you are actually thinking along existential lines. Believing as a student that you can make a change to your life and learn better, despite your limitations, despite your family background, despite your facilities, you are actually thinking in existential terms. Believing as a citizen that you can contribute to the betterment of society, again, is an existential action. Determining your career choice based on what you think is an important way to spend your future is an existential action. Now, what are the basic questions who believe in existentialism think about, or what do they ask? One very common question is the popular question, who am I?
തനിക്കറിയാമേലെങ്കിൽ താൻ എന്നോട് ചോദിക്ക് താൻ ആരാണെന്ന്. തനിക്ക് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു തരാം താൻ ആരാണ്. എന്നിട്ട് ഞാൻ ആരാണെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയാമോ താൻ എന്നോട് ചോദിക്ക്. അപ്പൊ തനിക്ക് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു തരാം.
What is my real nature, or what is my identity? Do you truly know your identity?
വ്യത്യസ്തനാമൊരു ബാർബറം ബാലനെ സത്യത്തിലാരും തിരിച്ചറിഞ്ഞില്ല.
What is the meaning of life? Is life എന്തിനോ വേണ്ടി തിളയ്ക്കുന്ന സാമ്പാർ? Is it? What is the meaning of existence? What is my greater purpose? What is death? What happens when I die? Is there a God? If there is a God, what is the nature of God? We often hear the term existential crisis. Now, what do you mean by that? Existential crisis. Let us look at some examples. Suppose you are a footballer and you have been training your whole life for being selected to the national team. All of a sudden you have an injury and your career is over. At that point, you would have an existential crisis because you have defined yourself as an athlete, as a footballer. It could very well happen to anybody. That's a situation of extreme frustration and pain. Another instance. Suppose you believe that God rewards good people and punishes bad people, and you have been believing this for quite some time. Unfortunately, when you see good people being hurt and bad people getting rewarded in the society due to some reason, you will feel irritated and frustrated because it goes against what you believe or what you have been believing. Suppose you are a parent, and when you see your child is leaving your home and you have defined yourself as his or her protector and guardian for your entire life, and your child goes against your wishes, as a parent you might feel that you have been cheated and you might go through an existential crisis. This can happen. Suppose you fall in love with somebody and want to spend the rest of your life with them. Again, unfortunately, you discover that that person does not feel the same way. You might be in for some existential crisis. The theatre of absurd has its roots in existentialism. In Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, we see characters who discuss their lives while waiting for Godot. We will discuss Waiting for Godot at another instance, but the whole concept is based on the fact that man's existence is in an absurd situation. Man is helpless in his environment and is continuously searching for meaning in his or her life. Jean-Paul Sartre believed that humanity has been burdened with this concept of free will. Man is condemned to be free. Condemned because he did not create himself, yet is nevertheless at liberty. And from the moment he or she is thrown into this world, they have to be responsible for everything they do. അതാണ് ജനിച്ചുപോയി, പക്ഷെ എങ്ങനെ ജീവിക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതിൻ്റെ ഉത്തരവാദിത്തം ആരിലാണ്? ആ മനുഷ്യനിൽ തന്നെയാണെന്നുള്ളതാണ്. അതിന് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും നോക്കാനുള്ള ഒരു വഴിയില്ല. You are responsible for your own decisions, your own choices, your own life. And finding meaning is a complete responsibility on that particular individual. Killing someone is a crime, but condemning someone to a lifetime of torture is a greater punishment. Several people want to be immortal. But what if you are cursed to do a particular task forever and ever? That is a hideous situation. The person must have been really mischievous to be cursed in such a manner. Who was this person? Greek mythology is filled with stories of gods killing and torturing and cursing mortals for spoiling their plans. Amongst those curses, the curse of this individual is the most relatable, as it has become a symbol of man's existence. In Ephyra, now known as Corinth, is a place in Greece, there ruled a clever king, Sisyphus, who made his city prosperous. He was also a devious tyrant who seduced his niece and enjoyed killing the people who came to visit him to show off his power. This violation of the sacred hospitality tradition greatly angered the gods, but the gods ignored this breach of trust, and Sisyphus continued to play with fire until his reckless confidence got the better of him. The trouble began when Zeus kidnapped the nymph Aegina, carrying her away in the form of a massive eagle. Aegina's father, the river god Aesopus, pursued their trail to Ephyra. where he encountered Sisyphus. In exchange for the god making a spring inside the city, the king told Aesopus which way Zeus had taken the girl. When Zeus found out that Sisyphus had betrayed him, he was so furious that he ordered Thanatos, or the god of death, to chain Sisyphus in the underworld so he couldn't cause any more problems. But Sisyphus was very tricky, and he asked Thanatos to show him how the chains worked. And when Thanatos revealed the secret, Sisyphus quickly used it and chained Thanatos in the underworld. Now the god of death is trapped, and when the god of death is trapped, people will not die, and this upset the balance of things in the world. The god of war, Eris, was extremely unhappy because the battles that he created were of no use as people never died. So the gods intervened and Thanatos was finally freed from his chains. Sisyphus knew his end was near, but he had another trick up his sleeve. So before dying, he asked his wife Merope to throw his body into the public square, from where it eventually washed up on the shores of the river Styx. Now he reached the underworld, and when he reached the underworld, he talked to the queen of the underworld, Persephone, and complained that his wife disrespected his body. Instead of performing the rituals and the ceremony and giving Sisyphus a proper burial, his body was thrown around, and he asked Persephone's permission to go back to the world of the humans so that he can chastise his wife. Persephone agrees to his request and sends him back. Now Sisyphus has escaped death twice. There won't be a third time. As Zeus intervened, he asks his messenger god Hermes to drag back Sisyphus to Hades. Hades is hell. He's brought back to Hades, and Zeus gives him a curse. He condemns him for a punishment which is going to last forever. His punishment was a very straightforward task. He had to roll a massive boulder up a hill. But just as he reaches the top, as he approached the top, the boulder would roll back down, forcing him to start the task again. And this would go on forever and ever, for all eternity. This image of someone who is punished for an endless task, and this task is really a meaningless task, this has been used as an allegory to refer to the human condition. In his 1942 classic essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, the French-Algerian existentialist philosopher Albert Camus compared the punishment to humanity's futile search for meaning and truth in a meaningless and indifferent universe. Influenced by philosophers such as Soren Kierkegaard, Arthur Schopenhauer, and Friedrich Nietzsche, Camus introduces his philosophy of the absurd, that life is inherently or naturally devoid of meaning and consequently absurd. But humans will nevertheless forever search for meaning. Hence, instead of despairing, Camus imagined Sisyphus defiantly meeting his fate as he walks down the hill to begin rolling the rock again. And even if the daily struggles of our lives sometimes seem equally repetitive and absurd, we still give them significance and value by embracing them as our own. The work can be seen in relation to other absurdist works by Camus. For example, such themes of existence and the absurdity of human life is again narrated in the novels like The Stranger, his Place, The Misunderstanding, and Caligula, and his essay, The Rebel. Sisyphus thus represents man's endless search for meaning despite being aware of the absurdity of the situation.